They came during the Cherry Blossom Festival in Washington, D.C., their crystalline ships refracting sunlight into countless prismatic displays across the morning sky. Parents initially mistook the phenomenon for an elaborate light show, pointing their children's attention upward with wonder rather than fear. The wonder lasted precisely 6 minutes and 23 seconds. At 9:47 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, every screen on Earth flickered to life simultaneously. Smartphones lit up in pockets. Television sets activated themselves. Times Square's massive displays shed their advertisements, replacing commercial excess with something far more alien. Admiral Caxthor's face filled these impromptu windows into humanity's new reality, his scaled features and luminescent eyes marking him as something definitively not of Earth. People of Terra. The translation overlay rendered his words in perfect English, his mouth movements only slightly out of sync. I am Admiral Caxthor of the Draconian Expeditionary Fleet. Your world has been selected for integration into our empire. Resistance is. He paused, baring teeth that gleamed like polished obsidian, inadvisable. In New York, traders stopped mid-shout on the stock exchange floor. In Beijing, midnight traffic ground to a halt as drivers emerged from their cars to stare at the otherworldly vessels, now visible through the smog. In Cairo, Moscow, Sydney, and 1,000 other cities, humanity collectively held its breath. 2 miles beneath the Antarctic ice, Dr. Amanda Reynolds watched it all unfold on specially shielded monitors. She took a slow sip from her coffee mug. Real coffee, not the instant stuff they usually got this far down, and allowed herself a small smile. Right on schedule, she murmured, her breath fogging slightly in the climate-controlled air of the command center. Around her, dozens of technicians and analysts maintained their positions with practiced calm, their movements unhurried despite the apparent apocalypse unfolding above. The Admiral's message continued, his voice carrying the weight of countless conquered worlds. Your military capabilities have been assessed and found inadequate. Your technological development is primitive. Your political structure is fragmented. You will surrender your resources and accept status as a protectorate of the Draconian Empire, or you will face immediate annihilation. Dr. Reynolds set down her coffee and pulled up a holographic display, her fingers dancing through the air as she manipulated data streams invisible to anyone without quantum-enhanced vision. Status report, she called out, her voice carrying across the hushed command center. Quantum Web is maintaining full coverage, ma'am. Lieutenant James Morrison responded from his station. They're scanning us with everything they've got, but the camouflage is holding. All they're seeing is what we want them to see. Crystalline hull composition confirmed, another analyst added. Exactly as our deep space scans indicated. Their shield harmonics are unchanged from our preliminary data. Dr. Reynolds nodded, satisfaction evident in her expression. 20 years of preparation, of maintaining the greatest deception in human history, had led to this moment. The world above might be panicking, but down here, everything was proceeding according to plan. Doctor, a young analyst called out, her voice tight with controlled excitement. The President is ready for his response. Should we proceed with Protocol 7? Confirm the quantum signature masks are in place first, Reynolds ordered. We can't have them detecting anything unusual in the broadcast. On the surface, the world's leaders were gathering for an emergency session of the United Nations. It would be a masterpiece of political theater, hours of apparent discord and fear, ultimately culminating in a show of unified terror before the alien threat. Every stuttered word, every bead of sweat on the Secretary General's brow had been choreographed years in advance. Admiral Caxthor's image continued to dominate the world's screens, his confidence radiating from every pixel. He had no way of knowing that his mighty fleet, with its crystalline ships and advanced technology, had just sailed into the most elaborate trap ever constructed. The Draconians thought they were watching humanity's first contact with an advanced civilization. They were wrong. This wasn't first contact. This was humanity's first reveal. The F-35s screamed across the Nevada sky, their pilots following the carefully scripted dance of ineffectual resistance. Dr. Amanda Reynolds watched through quantum-enhanced feeds as the jets executed their choreographed approach toward one of the smaller Draconian vessels. The alien ship's crystalline surface sparkled in the desert sun, its defensive shields not even bothering to activate against such primitive weapons. "Maintain current protocol," she spoke into her command mic, her voice carrying to military bases worldwide through quantum-encrypted channels. "Remember, we need them overconfident, not suspicious." Deep beneath the Antarctic ice, her team monitored the global network of quantum transmitters disguised as ordinary infrastructure. Cell towers, weather stations, and even children's toys held pieces of the most sophisticated defensive web ever created. Each component pulsed with invisible energy, gradually infiltrating the crystalline lattice of the Draconian ships. "Ma'am," Lieutenant Morrison called from his station, "the Chinese military is requesting permission to launch their missile demonstration." Reynolds checked her holographic display, confirming the timeline. "Give them the green light. Make sure they use the quantum-tagged warheads. We need the Draconians analyzing exactly the wrong kind of radiation signatures." Around the world, humanity's apparent resistance unfolded like a masterfully orchestrated symphony of failure. Russian tanks rolled through Red Square, their crews knowing they were part of an elaborate show. European nations scrambled their air forces in seemingly uncoordinated patterns that were, in fact, precisely calculated to draw Draconian attention away from key quantum transmitter nodes. In her private laboratory adjacent to the command center, Reynolds studied the latest data from Project Lighthouse. The quantum field was growing stronger by the hour, its invisible tendrils wrapping around the alien fleet like strands of a spider's web. On her primary screen, a simulation showed the crystalline structure of a Draconian hull slowly resonating with frequencies that its creators had never anticipated. Dr. Reynolds, a young physicist named Marcus Chen, appeared at her door, tablet in hand. "We're detecting some unusual harmonics in the Sydney grid. The Draconians might be picking up trace signatures." She pulled up the relevant data, her fingers dancing through the holographic interface. "Adjust the masking frequencies. Use the solar interference protocols we developed last year. They'll attribute any anomalies to their ship's interaction with Earth's magnetic field." Above them, Admiral Caxthor's fleet continued its intimidation tactics, positioning ships over major population centers. Their sensors swept the planet continuously, searching for any sign of meaningful resistance. Instead, they found exactly what humanity wanted them to find: outdated missile systems, primitive radar installations, and panicked military commands being broadcast on easily intercepted channels. Quantum saturation reaching 15%, Morrison reported from the command center. The crystalline structures are beginning to exhibit phase variance at the molecular level. Reynolds allowed herself a small smile. The Draconians' greatest strength, their advanced crystalline technology, would prove to be their undoing. Each ship was a masterpiece of alien engineering, its hull composed of artificially grown crystals that channeled energy with incredible efficiency. But those same crystals were now absorbing and resonating with frequencies they were never designed to handle. "Time to move to Phase 2, Reynolds announced, her voice carrying across the facility. "Begin the targeted intelligence leaks. Let's give our visitors something interesting to find." Across the globe, carefully crafted data packages began appearing in supposedly secure military networks. The Draconian cyber warfare teams would find them soon enough: detailed plans for nuclear strikes, experimental weapon systems, and desperate last-resort strategies. All of it was carefully designed to reinforce their belief in humanity's technological inferiority. A massive hologram dominated the center of the command room, showing the positions of every Draconian ship in Earth's orbit and atmosphere. Tiny motes of light represented the quantum transmitters hidden across the planet's surface, each one contributing to the invisible web that would eventually bring down an empire. "Dr. Reynolds," Morrison called out, excitement creeping into his usually professional tone. "The first crystals are beginning to show signs of quantum entanglement." The network is working exactly as you predicted. Reynolds nodded, watching the subtle changes rippling through the alien fleet. Soon, the Draconians would learn that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't the missiles being launched at their ships or the jets challenging their airspace. It was the quiet, invisible science that had been hiding in plain sight, waiting for this moment. Admiral Caxthor's scaled fingers drummed against his crystalline command throne, creating sharp musical tones that set his bridge crew's teeth on edge. Another scout ship had reported sensor malfunctions, the third in as many hours. The holographic display before him showed impossible readings, quantum fluctuations that appeared and vanished like ghosts, energy signatures that defied classification. "Explain to me," he said, his voice dangerously soft, "how a primitive species that still burns fossil fuels is causing our advanced sensors such difficulty." His science officer, a younger Draconian named Vextil, shifted uncomfortably. "The planet's magnetic field is unusually active, Admiral, combined with their excessive radio transmissions and a crystalline resonance from our fleet's presence." "Enough excuses." Caxthor's tail lashed in irritation. "Send another scout squadron. This time, have them focus on their secondary scanning arrays. Something is wrong, and I want to know what." Deep beneath the Antarctic ice, Dr. Amanda Reynolds watched the exchange through quantum-enhanced surveillance. The Draconian command ship's security was formidable, but they never conceived that humans might be able to use their own crystalline technology as a window into their communications. "They're starting to notice," Lieutenant Morrison observed, updating the holographic display showing the fleet's positions. "Should we dial back the quantum interference?" Reynolds shook her head, her fingers dancing through streams of data. "No, let them chase shadows. Each adjustment they make to their sensors only entangles them further in our web." Across the globe, the quantum network continued its invisible work. Every Draconian scan passed through layers of carefully engineered interference. Their crystalline ships, designed to channel and amplify energy, were gradually becoming conduits for frequencies that existed outside normal spacetime. "Ma'am," a young technician called out, "Scout Squadron 7 is approaching the Indian Ocean grid. Quantum resonance is reaching critical levels in their hull structure." Reynolds smiled. "Show me." The main screen shifted to show 3 Draconian scouts, their crystalline hulls glittering in the sunlight. As they passed over what appeared to be a simple weather monitoring station, their surfaces began to shimmer with an almost imperceptible distortion. Inside the lead scout ship, alarms blared. The crystalline sensors, trying to compensate for the quantum interference, began generating cascade errors throughout their systems. To the Draconian crew, it appeared as though reality itself was becoming unreliable. "Fascinating," Reynolds murmured, watching the data streams. "Their autonomous correction protocols are actually accelerating the entanglement process. They've designed their ships too well for their own good." In orbit, Admiral Caxthor received another disturbing report. The scout squadron was experiencing complete sensor failure, their crystalline arrays showing readings that suggested they were simultaneously in multiple locations. "Impossible," he snarled, bringing up the sensor logs himself. The data made no sense. Quantum states that should have collapsed were remaining stubbornly superimposed. It was as though... "Admiral," Vextil interrupted his thoughts, genuine fear in his voice. "Squadron 7 is reporting critical system failures. Their hull crystals are exhibiting some kind of resonance pattern we've never seen before." Reynolds watched with satisfaction as the scout ships struggled, their crews unable to understand why their advanced technology was betraying them. The quantum web had snared its first victims, and soon the entire fleet would discover that their technological superiority was their greatest weakness. "Dr. Reynolds," Morrison called out, excitement barely contained in his professional tone. "The entanglement effect is spreading faster than projected. The scout ship's crystals are transmitting the quantum interference to every vessel they communicate with." "Perfect." Reynolds stood, approaching the central hologram. Humanity spent decades appearing weak, letting them think their crystalline technology was beyond our comprehension. Now that same technology will be their undoing. Above the Indian Ocean, Squadron 7's ships flickered like heat mirages, their crews experiencing the first hints of what it meant to exist partially outside normal spacetime. The Draconian fleet was about to learn that sometimes the most dangerous predator is the one that appears to be prey. The Draconian destroyer Crystal Dawn hung above the Gobi Desert like a shard of starlight, its crystalline hull refracting the morning sun into rainbow cascades. Captain Mexcar stood on his bridge, mandibles clicking in frustration as he studied the primitive military installation below. "Another waste of our time," he muttered, watching human vehicles scurry across the base like insects. "These primitives aren't even trying to hide their facilities." His sensor officer's voice carried an odd note of uncertainty. "Sir, we're detecting some unusual energy readings from the structure. They don't match any known human power signatures. Probably more interference." Mexcar dismissed. "Bring us lower. Let's give these mammals a proper show-off." The words died in his throat as reality flickered. For a brief moment, every crew member experienced the impossible sensation of existing in multiple places simultaneously. Warning crystals throughout the ship began to resonate at frequencies that sent shivers through their exoskeletons. In the Antarctic Command Center, Dr. Amanda Reynolds watched the destroyer's quantum signature begin to destabilize. Status report on the Gobi installation. Quantum field at maximum strength. Lieutenant Morrison responded, his fingers flying over holographic controls. "The destroyer's hull crystals are fully entangled with our network." They took the bait perfectly. Reynolds nodded, allowing herself a small smile. "Begin the phase shift. Let's show them what happens when you underestimate humanity." Aboard the Crystal Dawn, chaos erupted as systems began failing in cascading patterns. The crystalline technology that made their ships the pride of the Draconian fleet was turning against them in ways their science had never predicted. "Full power to engines," Mexcar ordered, his composed demeanor cracking. "Get us out off." The destroyer vanished. Not with an explosion, not with a flash of light, but with a subtle ripple in spacetime that looked almost beautiful from the ground. One moment, the massive ship dominated the sky. The next, it was simply gone. Admiral Caxthor received the news with uncharacteristic silence, his scaled hands gripping his command throne tight enough to crack its crystalline surface. "Show me the sensor logs," he demanded finally. "Every reading, every anomaly, everything." But the logs only deepened the mystery. In the final moments before disappearance, the Crystal Dawn had reported quantum signatures that should have been impossible for a pre-spaceflight civilization to generate. More disturbing still, similar anomalies were beginning to appear throughout the fleet. Deep beneath the ice, Reynolds and her team monitored the aftermath. The destroyer wasn't destroyed. It was suspended in a carefully engineered pocket of quantum space, its crew experiencing a moment stretched into infinity while remaining perfectly preserved. "First capture successful," Morrison announced, pride evident in his voice. "The quantum pocket is stable. Should we begin preparations for the next phase?" Reynolds studied the holographic display, showing the Draconian fleet's positions. Already, she could see them adjusting their formation, drawing their ships closer together in unconscious response to the unknown threat. It would only make them more vulnerable to the quantum web's expanding influence. "Send the prepared sensor logs to Admiral Caxthor," she ordered. "Let him chase the breadcrumbs we've left. The more they try to understand what's happening, the deeper they'll fall into our trap." In orbit, Vextil, the science officer, presented his findings to an increasingly agitated admiral. "The quantum readings make no sense, sir. It's as if the Crystal Dawn encountered a localized disruption in spacetime itself. But the humans couldn't possibly." "Couldn't possibly what?" Caxthor's tail lashed dangerously. "Couldn't possibly be more advanced than we assumed. Couldn't possibly have technology we don't understand. A ship of the fleet is gone. Vextil. Not damaged, not destroyed. Gone." Throughout the fleet, More ships began reporting similar anomalies. Quantum fluctuations appeared and disappeared like ghostly fingers probing their defenses. Their crystalline hulls, the pride of Draconian engineering, resonated with frequencies that shouldn't have existed in normal space. Reynolds watched it all unfold with the patience of someone who had spent decades preparing for this moment. The Draconians were about to learn that humanity's apparent technological inferiority had been the greatest deception in galactic history. Colonel Sarah Martinez adjusted her uniform nervously as she approached the Draconian shuttle, her steps deliberately uncertain. The crystalline vessel gleamed under the spotlights of the designated landing zone in Nevada, its surface rippling with colors that shouldn't have existed in natural light. "Remember," Dr. Amanda Reynolds' voice whispered through the quantum-encrypted earpiece, invisible to Draconian scanners, "you're terrified but ambitious. Give them exactly what they expect from a desperate human officer." Martinez allowed her hands to shake slightly as she presented her credentials to the alien guards. Their towering forms and armored exoskeletons made intimidation easy to fake. Behind her, Area 51 sprawled across the desert, its hangars and runways filled with carefully crafted decoys and intentionally flawed prototype aircraft. Inside the Antarctic Command Center, Reynolds watched through quantum-enhanced feeds as Operation Looking Glass entered its critical phase. Around her, dozens of screens monitored similar scenes playing out worldwide, carefully selected defectors approaching the Draconians with offerings of information. Quantum field stability at 60%, Lieutenant Morrison reported. The fleet's attempts to enhance their sensors are actually amplifying the entanglement effect. Reynolds nodded, her attention split between Martinez's performance and a growing web of quantum interference surrounding the alien ships. "Show me the data they're accessing." A holographic display materialized, showing the carefully crafted files being downloaded by Draconian intelligence officers. Weapon schematics with deliberate flaws, defense plans with obvious weaknesses, and scientific research papers that pointed in exactly the wrong directions, all packaged to reinforce their belief in humanity's technological inferiority. Aboard his flagship, Admiral Caxthor reviewed the growing stream of human intelligence with increasing satisfaction. "Look at this," he gestured to his science officer, Vextil. "Their most advanced quantum research is decades behind even our civilian technology." Vextil studied the documents, trying to ignore the strange resonance that had been growing in his crystalline data tablet. "Sir, about these sensor anomalies." "Atmospheric interference," Caxthor dismissed. "These humans can barely understand basic quantum mechanics. The disappearance of the crystal dawn was clearly a malfunction caused by their primitive electromagnetic emissions." In Nevada, Martinez was playing her role perfectly. "Please," she begged the Draconian intelligence officer, "my family needs the protection you're offering. I've brought everything. Test flight data, prototype designs, even our quantum research attempts." The intelligence officer, Colonel Zexnar, mandibles twitching in amusement, accepted the data crystal she offered. His own crystalline translator rendered her apparent fear into perfect Draconian, complete with submissive harmonic undertones. Reynolds watched the exchange with satisfaction. The quantum signatures embedded in the stolen data would spread through the Draconian network like a virus, creating even more interference patterns for their sensors to fight against. "Dr. Reynolds," a young analyst called out, "the Draconians are implementing the shield modifications we predicted. Their crystalline matrices are becoming more receptive to our quantum frequencies." "Excellent." Reynolds pulled up a new set of calculations. "Prepare for Phase 6. Let them think they've cracked our defenses. Every countermeasure they implement will only make the final phase more effective." Across the globe, more defectors approached Draconian ships, each carrying pieces of humanity's elaborate deception. Japanese quantum physicists offered flawed research data. Russian generals revealed imaginary weapon stockpiles. European scientists presented carefully broken prototype designs. Admiral Caxthor's confidence grew with each new piece of intelligence. His fleet's strange sensor problems seemed insignificant compared to the wealth of human military secrets being revealed. He had no way of knowing that every crystal in his mighty fleet was being tuned like an instrument, preparing for a symphony of quantum chaos. "The web is nearly complete," Morrison announced, watching the quantum interference patterns spread through the Draconian fleet. "Their entire command and control network is compromised." Reynolds allowed herself a moment of pride. Humanity had spent decades appearing weak, maintaining the illusion of division and technological backwardness. Now, as the Draconian fleet wallowed in false confidence, that deception was about to become their greatest weapon. "All ships, commence the attack." Admiral Caxthor's command resonated through the crystalline communication network of the Draconian fleet. 5,000 warships moved in perfect formation, their hulls shimmering with enough power to reduce Earth's military bases to ash. "Let them taste the might of the Empire," he declared, watching the tactical display as the first wave of ships entered Earth's atmosphere. The humans' pathetic attempts at resistance had confirmed everything the Empire believed about primitive species. Deep beneath the Antarctic ice, Dr. Amanda Reynolds watched the Draconian fleet begin its descent. "They've taken the bait," she announced, her voice carrying across the command center. "Initiate Protocol Endgame." Lieutenant Morrison's fingers danced across his console, quantum web at full power, all nodes synchronized and ready. The first wave of Draconian ships streaked through the sky above Beijing, their crystalline weapons charging with devastating power. Suddenly, the lead destroyer's hull began to shimmer with an unusual iridescence. "Admiral." Vextil's voice carried a note of panic. "Something's wrong with the Vengeance Squadron. Their quantum signatures are impossible." Caxthor lurched forward in his command throne as he watched 3 destroyers simply vanish from existence. Not explode, not crash, but disappear as if they had never been there at all. Before he could process what he was seeing, another squadron winked out above Moscow. "Status report," he roared, but his command staff could only stare in horror as more ships began to flicker and fade. In the Antarctic facility, Reynolds monitored the quantum cascade effect spreading through the Draconian fleet. "Their own communications network is amplifying the effect," she observed. "Every attempt they make to coordinate their attack only accelerates the process." Above New York, a battlecruiser's crew experienced the terrifying sensation of existing in multiple realities simultaneously. Their crystalline technology, designed to channel energy with perfect efficiency, had become a conduit for quantum frequencies that defied the laws of conventional physics. "The quantum pocket dimensions are stable," Morrison reported. "We're successfully capturing ships with minimal energy expenditure. Their own power systems are doing most of the work for us." Admiral Caxthor watched in disbelief as his mighty fleet dissolved like morning mist. The sensor readings made no sense. Quantum entanglement patterns that shouldn't have been possible, energy signatures that violated everything he knew about physics. "Impossible," he whispered, his scaled hands gripping his command throne. "They're primitives. They barely understand basic quantum mechanics." The intelligence reports confirmed. "The intelligence reports showed you exactly what we wanted you to see." Dr. Reynolds' voice suddenly filled his command deck, transmitted through the same crystalline networks the Draconians had trusted. "Your own arrogance made our deception perfect." A new hologram materialized in front of the Admiral, showing a human woman standing in what appeared to be an advanced command center. Behind her, screens displayed the positions of every Draconian ship, including the ones that had vanished. "Your ships aren't destroyed," Reynolds explained, her tone almost gentle. "They're suspended in quantum pocket dimensions, their crews perfectly preserved in a moment of time. A technology your empire declared impossible 3 centuries ago." Caxthor watched helplessly as another wave of his ships phased out of normal spacetime. The humans hadn't been primitive at all. They had been waiting, preparing, developing weapons that targeted the very foundation of Draconian technology. "The quantum web is approaching full saturation," Morrison announced. 90% of their fleet has been neutralized." Reynolds nodded, watching the Admiral's expression through the quantum-enhanced feed. Sometimes, Admiral, she said, the most dangerous predator is the one that convinces you it's prey. Above Earth, the mighty Draconian fleet continued to vanish, their crystalline ships becoming mere echoes in dimensions humanity had mastered decades ago. The greatest invasion force in the galaxy was learning, too late, that they had severely underestimated the species they had come to conquer. Junior Science Officer Lex Terra's hands trembled as she reviewed the data for the 15th time. The quantum readings couldn't be right, yet every analysis confirmed her terrible suspicion. She stood on the bridge of the last remaining support carrier, surrounded by holographic displays showing the impossible. "Speak," Admiral Caxthor commanded from the quantum communication feed. His flagship now stood alone among the scattered remnants of his once mighty fleet. "Sir," Lex Terra's voice quavered, "the humans, they've mastered six-dimensional quantum manipulation. The crystalline resonance patterns, the sensor ghosts, the disappearances. It's all connected. They've created stable quantum pocket dimensions using our own ships as conduits." In the Antarctic Command Center, Dr. Amanda Reynolds watched the young Draconian's explanation with appreciation. "She figured it out faster than we expected," she noted to Lieutenant Morrison. "Mark her for potential diplomatic contact later." "The rest of the fleet is attempting to retreat," Morrison reported, monitoring the quantum web's coverage. "Should we allow it?" Reynolds shook her head. "Their engines are already compromised. Watch." The remaining Draconian ships fired their quantum drives, attempting to break free of Earth's gravity well. Instead of launching them to safety, the energy surge completed the entanglement process. Ship after ship flickered and vanished, their own escape attempts sealing their fate. "Admiral," Lex Terra's voice cracked with realization, "these humans, they detected our civilization years ago. They've been preparing for this encounter, studying our technology, developing countermeasures specifically designed to turn our greatest strength into our ultimate weakness," Reynolds finished, broadcasting across all remaining Draconian channels. The quantum networks they relied upon now belonged to humanity completely. Holographic displays materialized across the bridge of Caxthor's flagship, showing the truth in devastating detail. Human quantum research hadn't been decades behind. It had leaped centuries ahead, hidden behind a carefully maintained facade of primitive technology. "Your ships are safe, Admiral," Reynolds explained, her image now clear and steady in the Draconian command center. "We could have destroyed them, but that was never our intention. Each vessel exists in a perfectly maintained quantum pocket, suspended in a single moment of time. Their crews are unharmed." Simply paused. Caxthor's scaled hands clenched as he watched the last of his support ships vanish. "How long?" he demanded. "How long have you been watching us?" "We detected your first scout ships 23 years ago," Reynolds replied. "When we analyzed their crystalline technology, we recognized both its potential and its fundamental vulnerability. Everything since then, our apparent technological development, our political divisions, even our environmental problems, has been carefully crafted theater." Lex Terra's scientific mind finally grasped the full scope of the deception. The quantum web, it's everywhere. In their communication networks, their weather satellites, their children's toys. We've been swimming in it since we arrived. And every scan you performed, every analysis you ran, every attempt to understand our defenses only entangled you further, Reynolds confirmed. Your own curiosity and pride did most of our work for us. The flagship's sensors blared as quantum distortions began appearing throughout its hull. The crystalline structure that made it the pride of the Draconian fleet now hummed with frequencies that shouldn't have existed in normal spacetime. Your empire has encountered thousands of species, Reynolds continued, her voice carrying no hint of malice, and each time, you judged them by their apparent technological level. You never considered that some might choose to appear weak, might hide their true capabilities until they were needed. Admiral Caxthor, Supreme Commander of the Draconian Expeditionary Fleet, finally understood. His mighty armada hadn't been defeated by superior firepower or advanced shields. They had been undone by their own assumptions, their own arrogance, and a species that had turned patience and deception into an art form. The Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Confederation hummed with nervous energy. Representatives from 1,000 worlds watched as Dr. Amanda Reynolds approached the central podium, her steps unhurried and confident. Behind her, Admiral Caxthor followed as the official Draconian witness, his once proud bearing tempered by newfound wisdom. Distinguished representatives, Reynolds began, her voice carrying across the vast chamber. 3 months ago, the Draconian Empire attempted to conquer Earth, believing us to be primitive and defenseless. Today, we come before you to establish a new understanding. The holographic displays activated, showing the quantum pocket dimensions where the Draconian fleet still hung suspended. With a gesture from Reynolds, one ship materialized in normal space, a demonstration that caused gasps among the assembled delegates. We could have destroyed the fleet, she continued. Instead, we chose preservation over destruction, containment over conflict. Each crew member remains perfectly preserved, experiencing no passage of time, awaiting the moment we choose to release them. In the front row, Junior Science Officer Lex Terra, now serving as a liaison between Earth and the Draconian Empire, watched with a mixture of awe and understanding. She had spent weeks studying human quantum technology, learning how thoroughly her people had underestimated this supposedly primitive species. Humanity, Reynolds explained, has chosen to reveal only a fraction of our capabilities. The quantum technology that captured the Draconian fleet represents merely the surface of our understanding. We have remained hidden, watching, learning, preparing, not out of fear, but out of a desire to understand how advanced civilizations would treat those they perceived as weaker. Admiral Caxthor stepped forward, his voice carrying the weight of his experience. My fleet, the mightiest armada in the Empire's history, was defeated without a single shot fired. The humans turned our own technology against us with an elegance that we never imagined possible. The assembled representatives murmured as Reynolds activated another holographic display, this one showing Earth's quantum detection network. It extended far beyond the solar system, revealing that humanity had been monitoring galactic civilization for decades. We come before you today, not as supplicants, Reynolds declared, but as equals. The release of the Draconian fleet will begin immediately, but with conditions. A new treaty, ensuring peaceful cooperation and mutual respect among all species, regardless of their apparent technological level. Lieutenant Morrison, now Earth's military attaché to the Confederation, transmitted the proposed treaty terms to every representative. The documents revealed how humanity had prepared for this moment, crafting agreements that would reshape galactic politics. Your civilizations have categorized species based on technological advancement, Reynolds continued. We propose a different metric, the wisdom to know when to reveal power and when to withhold it. Earth has chosen this moment to step onto the galactic stage, but make no mistake, we have been watching, learning, and preparing for far longer than any of you suspected. Lex Terra analyzed the technical specifications included in the treaty documents, her scientific mind grappling with the implications. The quantum technology humans had revealed was revolutionary, but certain passages hinted at capabilities far beyond even that. As a gesture of good faith, Reynolds announced, "We offer to share our quantum containment technology. But understand this, it represents only one facet of human advancement. We have chosen to appear primitive, to learn and observe without interference." That time has now ended. The Grand Assembly Hall erupted in discussion as representatives realized the full implications. Humanity hadn't just defeated the Draconian fleet. They had orchestrated a reveal that would forever change the balance of power in the galaxy. Admiral Caxthor moved to stand beside Reynolds, a living testament to the dangers of underestimating an apparently primitive species. The humans taught us a valuable lesson, he addressed his fellow representatives. True power lies not in the strength you display, but in the wisdom to know when to reveal it. As the Galactic representatives debated the treaty terms, Reynolds allowed herself a small smile. Humanity had finally stepped out of the shadows, but even now, they had revealed only what was necessary. In research facilities across Earth, scientists continued their work on technologies that the galaxy wasn't yet ready to understand.